Hello everyone, happy weekend. I'm super excited to finally be presenting to you the ALTA Distillation trailer. Now this has been a creation that has been killing me, and I'll tell you why in this video, but before I begin, I want to thank Sheppy5, I want to thank Lord Bison, and all the people on my Discord server that helped and tested out this creation and sort of gotten it to a point where it can be functional. Sheppy5 is also a contributor to the actual creation and will be credited when it finally comes out to be released. Why did this creation kill me? It killed me because it was the only one, and I mean the only creation where I physically could not complete it because of an issue with the game, a bug in the game. And that bug really comes down to the compressed gases update and how it sort of took the game and what happened after the gases update to our distillation chambers. Long story short, what I found, or what Sheppy found, was that the temperature inside a distillation chamber is lower at the top and much higher at the bottom, which is contrary to real life where heat rises. Here in the game, after you had the compressed gases update, the temperature was hotter on the bottom, most likely because on the bottom of the chamber is where the liquid would be. And I know that's weird because the game saturates a chamber fully, but yet it doesn't for temperature. So I found there is a temperature differential, and that combined with the fact that this the actual distillation chamber that uses the gas or diesel system was not fully heating up, and it was almost not circulating anything within the system. It was like we had it on and nothing would heat up, and that's why it drove me nuts, because it wasn't even anything to do with our design. It was just a bug in the game and we were stuck with it. Now fast forward to a brilliant discovery that Sheppy5 had, and that was to use purely electric heaters in this. So we ditched the diesel heater that trailer has there, and now we have a system of purely electric heaters, in addition to having a much better microcontroller, to having other improvements that I'm going to mention here soon. But pretty much we ditched the diesel, changed the whole system, gutted the whole thing. Actually, this is a chamber within a chamber, funny enough. This trailer is just a shell, and the actual creation that Sheppy had is placed inside here and fits perfectly inside this distillation chamber. Then I added the solar panels and all that other stuff, and a much better modular engine or generator here, which I'll explain in a second. But pretty much with the addition of all this stuff now, if we go here to our little truck that has the oil, we can start to pump oil into here, and you can see that this distillation chamber amount is increasing. Of course, that fully matches the oil in the distillation chamber. Now if I turn on the distillation and turn on the generator, you then get a system that starts to heat up, and it heats up nice and quickly. Now that one did not heat up nice and quickly, and in fact this took like, every time I tested it, it would take forever even to reach 50 degrees. So something wasn't working right. At one point I actually took out this whole distillation chamber on the RSV Akimbo and tested out if that worked, and then mirrored the system in a trailer form, and it didn't work. So there was clearly some sort of bug happening that I really cannot explain. But in the end, again, we ended up with a system that now heats up. So if I'm watching it here, you can see that it is heating up nicely, and because of the temperature differential, this temperature is actually at the top of the chamber where it is the coldest. So even though that is not yet 300 degrees, you can see we're already distilling. We're getting jet and diesel. Now there's a couple things to keep in mind here. It's that this generator set at 85% throttle can keep up with the full system here. But one thing that is sort of a downside of this sort of creation where you end up with this trailer mounted with the distillation chamber is the heat and temperature from these electric heaters are actually increasing the temperature of the generator. So it's not a viable solution to run this for an extended period of time with the generator here. And I toyed with putting the generator on the front of this trailer or extending the trailer, but in the end Sheppy suggested something great, and that is to make a truck that has a generator mounted on the back and has a connector for semi-trailers. So this generator is fine to operate and create distillation for as long as it can. Once it hits 110 degrees, it'll turn off, and then you have to wait for it to cool down. Now over here, as you can see now, we are distilling things. We got jet, we got diesel, we get increasing the amount of jet and diesel here. So this system is fully working, and you honestly do not know how excited I am for this. I was super thrilled with the breakthrough we had, because again, it was the only creation that I just could not finish, and there was nothing that we could do about it. And I really have to give credit to Sheppy, who took the time to create a microcontroller and develop this, and in fact even gave me the idea for this. So this is now proceeding and happening, and the one nice thing now is that not only can you pump out the diesel and jet by turning this, and then this becomes an actual system that has a pump feeding it, you also can go over here and turn on the distilled diesel to actually feed your generator. So now the generator level should be fed by this chamber. It now opens up. There's a little valve here and here. And now that is feeding our generator, so the generator could last longer, again, except for the heat problem. I do have two of these radiators mounted on the trailer, but even with two of them, I still found that it will overheat, so I didn't want to put more than the two. It gives you a decent amount of time to distill, of course. As you can see here, we got actually a good amount of distilled stuff. This truck is fully empty of oil anyways. So that is the system in a nutshell. Now this will continue to distill and continue to remove the oil in the chamber. And I do have a little bit of a shutoff here. Once you hit a certain temperature, 350 at the very top, meaning the bottom is even hotter, this system will now sort of slow down, but it is still a work in progress. It's still not fully finalized. You can see here actually we are increasing in the amount of diesel and jet fuel slowly. The diesel and jet in the chamber itself seems to be dropping. This is dropping, so it doesn't quite, but it's not creating any more. So it's almost stalled out at 168 in this case. Now I've put two trucks in parallel with the oil, so I'm going to end up actually putting more oil into the chamber. I do want to see if it stalls out when it hits 168 liters again, if that's just some sort of minimum amount of liquid we could have in the chamber before the system stalls out, or is that a coincidence that it was 168, and does it really have to do with the fact that these furnaces have stopped heating and it's slowed the system down because we hit 100 or 350 degrees in the chamber? So I do want to take a look at that. But even before that, what I'm going to do is go into my distillation microcontroller here, and I believe I have one free spot, and what I want to do is add the second temperature probe. And the reason for that is because I don't know if when we have the when the temperature goes to the top and heats up to 350, what happens at the bottom. That's one of the things that I'm quite curious. And if we turn off our pumps and turn everything off, does it actually stop heating the bottom perhaps? So if we go here, we could see that the temperature probe 1 and temperature probe 2 are here. And what I may do is honestly just add a second line item here for if this one is less than what we want, the distillation pause here, and then put or and or. So it'll only pause the distillation if both of these are higher than 350. And then in this case here, I kind of played around and I staggered when these would shut off, assuming the system comes to a halt. But I'm not sure, again, these numbers may need a little bit of fine-tuning, especially if these if the furnaces start turning off and keep cooling off the system too much, it may cause some problems for us. So I'm just going to turn that up slightly and run this microcontroller now. What I'm also going to do is, just for our own little interest, is put a little dial here for now to tell us what the temperature is at the top and the temperature is at the bottom. Of course, you can see this temperature is at the top of the chamber. This one here should be right there. So now we could actually see that temperature differential and find out exactly what happens. And make sure my temperature probe 2 is connected. Now another neat thing is I may as well just add another truck, get even more diesel flowing or oil flowing through the system, and really make sure that we test this thing in the long run, in addition to how the engine heats up and cools down. So first things first, what I actually want to do is connect these systems in parallel. So we'll be pumping out, and we'll be pumping in here, then we'll be pumping out here, we'll be pumping in here. So that's both, and then here finally we're pumping out and into this chamber there, and you can see that the number will start to increase. And then I will start the generator up, and then we will start the distillation. So that's going to be a decent amount of oil between all this system. It's going to be like 3,000 liters, and we'll see exactly how much we can end up distilling in this type of case. So now that the system's reconnected and we are pumping in oil, you could see here that the temperature at the top versus the temperature at the bottom. So the temperature at the top is reading almost 60, yet down here we are already at 118. So there's a large difference in the top and bottom of the chamber, and that causes a problem. The problem being not the whole liquid inside the distillation chamber is at 300 degrees. So even if your bottom is at 300 degrees, your tank is distilling oil, it doesn't happen at the top for some reason. So the bottom is distilling it, the top isn't, and you end up stalling the system out. That's what Sheppy found in his tests. So just looking at this, we're seeing roughly a difference of 60 degrees, which is a pretty large difference, to be honest. It's large enough that it is concerning if you're trying to run a system that will distill oil in a consistent manner. Now also here you can see that our generator is lagging a bit, so we'll turn up the throttle there just to make sure that we are bringing in the max amount of electricity. That's important. And you can see here we are at 215 or so, and here we're at 160, so there is something being distilled, which is interesting. Again, it didn't even hit that 300 range, and yet we're distilling it. Why? I don't really know, unless there is a pocket of 300 degrees in there for some reason. But it's even producing diesel and jet right now, which is, again, interesting. Good to know. These guys will continue to pump out their oil, which will be a good sort of test. And now you can see that the temperature is actually dropping. Interesting. Maybe we've put too much fluid in this case. So now we've stalled the system, and we're still at 100 electric. So this keeps coming in. If we disconnect that, we should start to increase our temperature. So it could be that we stalled out the system by putting in too much liquid. And even though this thing is rated to put, it seems like 2,000 liters or so, even at the 900, it was getting a little stalled out. Now it's increasing a little slower, you could see, and we're not producing anything yet. So that was interesting. It may be worthwhile then for me to put a little control valve, that if the temperature starts to drop, that the valve will actually shut and prevent any new oil from coming into the system. But this is steadily increasing. If we go over here to take a look at our temperature, you can see that the generator is causing increased temperature. 85 I found was the sweet spot. I'm not sure why it started to consume more electricity, but you can see it should slow the temperature down a little bit when that happens. And of course now we are almost at 300 with the bottom. Now that said, this should start to produce. So if we look at this number now, we should slowly start to get a difference of these types of liquids in the chamber, yet I'm not seeing it, which is interesting. We've hit that 300. That's still fluctuating, and the top is not yet at 300. As a part of the test, I've even turned off the generator. I just put on infinite electric because I'm genuinely curious what is going to happen with this. We still are not producing any more liquid in here, and the chamber, the speed is slowed down drastically. So this is kind of what was happening with the other trailer. Mind you, at least we're still going up, and here we're already over that limit for temperature. And if we take a look at the actual furnaces, this one is running really hot, and these ones are not running as hot, so that's interesting to note as well. But again, still, we're not creating anything new here, even though we're just about at the 300 mark. We've just about hit 300 at the top, the bottom is still at 350, so as we hit 300 here, we'll see what starts to happen with the fluid. So now it says distillation temperature reached, but even still, I don't, it's slowly increasing. Well, I guess what looks like is happening, and this is off, is as it produces the little bit of diesel and jet in this chamber, it goes right away into here. But it's producing it at a very, very slow level. So I'm not quite sure what is going on here. Still a little bit of confusion, but again, the base system seems to be working, and now it's just ironing out these kinks, doing some tests to figure out what exactly caused it to suddenly shut off as it did. Why is it slowed down so much? Like now it's just trickling, even though the temperature is fully reached. So there's something interesting going on here, and whether it is a glitch of the game or whether it's something wrong with the system, but what baffles me is the fact that it was working quite quickly before it even hit the full 300, and now all of a sudden it's stalled out and it's just not wanting to produce. So while it is a little discouraging that the system does not work perfectly, it is also quite encouraging to know that after months of the system not working at all, we're almost there. So I was just talking to Sheppy, he's working on a solution, a potential solution with some ideas. I've also have some ideas in mind what we could possibly do, but it is underway, and that just makes me super happy because again, the only creation that I was not able to complete because of bugs, because of issues, now we have sort of a grasp on it and a potential lead. So never give up, I guess, is my conclusion. Even if there's something that seems to be fully bogged down and you have no way of completing it, you still have a chance of doing it if you put your brain and thoughts together, especially if you take a break and get back to it later. That is, in essence, actual engineering. That's actual sort of inventions where something doesn't quite work, you're stalled out, you then regroup and try again. So thank you all for watching, stay tuned for more. I'm excited to present the finished distillation trailer, and as always, happy Stormworksing everyone.